Hi everyone, on this new episode of BioMarine 360, we are going to the edge of the world, more specifically Tasmania, to talk about fucoidan and seaweed with Paul Garrott, CEO and Managing Director at Marinova. Marinova is a progressive Australian biotech company dedicated to the development and production of high-purity seaweed extracts for the betterment of human health. More specifically, Marinova specializes in the manufacture of fucoidan compounds, a highly bioactive polysaccharide derived from a select species of brown seaweed. Let's discover together Paul and Marinova's journey in becoming a global leader in fucoidan science and discussing more about their business strategy, the health benefits of seaweed, and how a focus on sustainability has shaped their success. So before we dive into the questions, could you care to do a short introduction about Marinova and yourself?
Yes, certainly. Look, Marinova is a biotechnology company based in Tasmania, Australia. Our sole focus is on fucoidans and fucoidan compounds. We were incorporated in 2003. And in the 18 years since we were incorporated, we've carved out a niche for the company in the research, the manufacture of high purity fucoidan compounds. The company was, as I say, founded 18 years ago by myself and my father, who interestingly are both accountants by training. So here we are, we find ourselves leading very much a science-focused biotechnology company, which has created challenges for someone like me that doesn't have a science background. But I really see my role as being the conduit. It's about coordinating the great brains that we have within the organisation and getting them to focus on what we are trying to do, and which is really all about producing natural products for the betterment of human health.
And so, as you said, very unique beginning, so from accounting, and from this accounting you became a leading company in fucoidan science. So can you explain exactly how you managed to position yourself like this and within this niche market make a name for yourself, because it's a quite particular story what you have there?
Yes, certainly. Look, our success can really be attributed to our commitment to science, to research and development. And each year we commit more than 20% of our gross revenues, that's our gross sales, into applied research and development. In addition to making that significant commitment, we are a profitable, cash flow positive biotechnology company. We have no external borrowings. And that, as you know, Antoine, is a very rare beast to have a biotechnology company that doesn't need to keep going to the market every 12 months to keep their research and development pipeline continuing. So, look, we're very fortunate. That's reflective of our unique business model. We're very pragmatic about our approach to research and development. I said it's very commercially focused. It also reflects the fact that Marinova has vertically integrated operations from seaweed harvest right through to the manufacture of highly refined fucoidan compounds for medical research purposes. And along that spectra, we have the opportunity to commercialise products into the nutritional space, into the animal health and veterinary space, into the skincare space. And it's the revenues that we generate from those sales that enable us to reinvest back into research and development and pursue some of these higher end applications. So we are in the business to business space. There are no Marinova branded products on any pharmacy or drugstore shelves around the world. So Marinova is the supplier of choice to leading nutritional companies and pharmaceutical companies and skincare companies. And that's always been our core competency, working in that business to business space and keeping focused on the importance of research.
No, I agree. And as you said, it's very rare for a company today to function solely on itself and not rely on whether it's loans or investors or anything like that. So it's a quite impressive business model. And to jump on what you said, so of course you guys are focusing on nutrition, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, because it's an area of focus for fucoidan. But what are future developments that you anticipate for this ingredient? I saw that you mentioned animal feed a bit earlier.
Yes, well, historically, fucoidan has been known in the human health settings for a whole range of bioactivities. The anti-cancer integrative oncology space has been well documented, particularly in East Asia, where in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, it's been well researched around these anti-cancer properties of fucoidan compounds. The other areas that have been particularly well researched are around the anti-inflammatory applications, the antiviral applications. So they have traditionally been the areas that have garnered the most research interest. There are more than 2,000 research papers have been published on the bioactivity of fucoidan. Interestingly, a majority of those research papers have been published in just the past 15 years. So there's this exponential interest, scientific interest taking place in fucoidan compounds. And the areas that are attracting a lot of interest at the moment are around gut and gastric health. And the Maritech branded fucoidan ingredients that Marinova produces, they've been shown to protect gut flora from antibiotics, reduce gut inflammation and conditions like colitis. They've also been shown to inhibit the adhesion of Helicobacter, which is known to cause gastric ulcers. So it's that sort of evidence that is, generating evidence in that space. And then there's the antiviral activity, which has obviously been very topical in the last 12 to 15 months. Again, we've shown that our Maritech fucoidan can prevent viral infection by blocking the entry of viruses into cells and inhibiting adhesion of viruses to host cells. And they include multiple strains of influenza, H1N1 and H5N1, and also herpes, herpes simplex 1 and herpes simplex 2. And most recently, Antoine, Marinova has shown that the oral ingestion of fucoidan can also reduce lung damage in a model of acute viral infection. So it's these sorts of research outcomes that obviously lead to the next stage of research, but are also garnering interest in the marketplace at the moment. I mentioned at the outset about integrative oncology and the anti-cancer effects being a well-known and well-researched area of fucoidan. And Marinova has done quite a lot of work in this space on its Maritech branded extracts. And we've actually shown that fucoidan can reduce chemotherapy side effects, including inflammation, and there's evidence to show can reduce fatigue and also pain. And we've also conducted a whole program of in vitro studies that have shown that our fucoidan can induce cell death in a number of cancer cell lines. So whilst that research is interesting and intriguing from a scientific perspective, it's not necessarily relevant to the nutritional space, but it aligns with some of these higher value-added research collaborations we have taking place in the background.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you said, it's perfectly in line with what's happening today, all this with the COVID and all these health challenges that we have. Nutrition is important, but the pharmaceutical area is booming, and finding very clean, green solutions to tackling these issues is actually quite important. And this brings me to the next question. So all these new applications are great. The seaweed is getting much more traction. However, sustainability is critical for the scalability of all this industry to go up. So what's Marinova's approach to this, and what do you see the future holding for the global seaweed industry?
You're right, Antoine. Sustainability is everything, and it will increasingly become everything. Now, Marinova is in a unique position in the sense that we use only, and we're the only fucoidan company that's producing certified organic, wild harvested seaweeds that are harvested on an environmentally sustainable basis and are then being converted into high purity fucoidans that have global regulatory acceptance. That sustainability reflects a couple of things. First of all, we are a family-owned company, and I would like my children and my children's children to be sitting in this chair in 30 years' time or in 130 years' time. And that's only going to happen if we run this business and our suppliers run their business in a sustainable fashion. Sustainability means different things to different people and to different companies. Mm-hmm. As we know, there are a lot of companies out there that talk the talk, but don't necessarily walk the walk. I believe there's enormous upside for the seaweed industry. The greatest challenges, though, I don't believe are going to come from within the seaweed industry itself, but from outside impacts and outside externalities, like the increasing contamination of ocean waters. And I think to secure the sustainability of the wider seaweed industry, the seaweed industry needs to become increasingly vocal and advocate strong leadership at the government level to prevent further environmental degradation. I think the seaweed industry, it's obviously progressing and growing at a rapid rate, but I do fear that there are pressures above and beyond the control of the seaweed industry at this point in time that the seaweed industry can actually influence if they become a little more vocal. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Antoine, but
it does. And as you said, it's I don't think it's only about seaweed. There's so many other factors that need to be taken into consideration and that are going to impact seaweed, and that seaweed is going to impact on the other way. And everything comes from raising awareness and putting seaweed on the agenda, whether it's locally or regionally or even on a global scale. So I agree, it's important. And even where you guys are, and this is going to be my last question afterwards, I mean, Tasmania, even though it looks so far away, I mean, even those challenges are still there. So yeah. And so this brings me to the last question, which is, what led you to create your company in Tasmania?
Yes, well, Marinova really came about through the fact that the Undaria or Wakame species of seaweed was introduced into our coastal waters about 40 years ago, accidentally. It was introduced in the ballast water of visiting vessels from East Asia. There were very significant concerns in the early days that the Undaria Wakame seaweed was going to infest the local seafood beds and decimate the scallop and lobster beds in this state. In an attempt to control the progression of the Undaria seaweed, the state government of Tasmania and the federal government, the national government of Australia, declared this species to be a noxious pest, and they issued a license to allow the harvesting of this particular species of seaweed. Mm-hmm. We were fortunate enough to obtain that sole license to harvest the seaweed. And in the early days, we actually tried to commercialise it as a food product. But we realised very early on that the costs of hand harvesting, and we had to engage commercial divers to harvest, to swim around and find the seaweed, it became prohibitive for us to grow the business as a food business. So we then turned to a team of scientists, and we collaborated with local universities. We identified a very unique method to extract fucoidan out of the seaweed, because unless we found a higher value added opportunity out of this resource, the company wasn't going to progress. So over the course of the next 10 or 12 years, we refined this very unique solvent-free extraction process. We invested heavily in research and development. We attracted some very clever people to the company to help grow the business. And as I say, I'm just the person, I'm the conductor that tries to control and manage these people. I'm certainly not the brains behind it all. So it's really a credit to the people that we employ here. And I must say, it is an attraction having the business here in Tasmania. We have a very diversified workforce here. A lot of our staff have come from overseas. Tasmania is a beautiful place to live. It's an envious lifestyle, and to work at the bottom of the world with a very dynamic, globally focused company, it's a very attractive proposition to people.
I agree. It sounds very tempting, and hopefully one day when we'll be able to travel again, I'd love to finally see Tasmania for myself.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Paul, so much for all this information. I mean, as I see it, I think fucoidan and even Marinova have beautiful years ahead of itself, and I really look forward to see exactly what will go next and how you and fucoidan will really build the industry up.
Thank you, Antoine.